Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Immigration Talk Show. I'm your host, Sam. And today we are back again with another very exciting webinar that is lined up just for you. And before diving into the topic, let me go ahead with this disclaimer first. So, friends, by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not a legal advice. The use of information is at your own risk. And with that, friends, we are also live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on X as well. So go ahead and watch us from these many platforms. And also don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Immigration Talk Show. And talking about today's topic is something that's always in the headlines in job interviews and even at dinner tables. And that is immigration and US job market in 2025. Now, some people think that immigrants are taking away all the jobs, and others say that we don't have enough people to do the jobs. So, what's really going on? It's confusing, right? So, is immigration helping the economy or hurting it? And are US workers actually losing out or leveling up? And most importantly, how US job market will be for immigrants. In the upcoming years, we are going to understand, will there will be more opportunities for immigrants or more challenges? Well, so many things to unpack, and with that, I have one of the great attorneys sitting right in front of me, and she'll be joining me in a bit. None other than attorney Ruby L. Pars, who's a board certified immigration attorney and also founder of Pars Law Group in Houston. And with nearly 2 decades of experience, she is not only a skilled legal expert, but also a passionate advocate for immigrants and their families. So, hi, Ruby, and thank you so much for joining here. It's really our honor to have a show with you, and so good to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me. And what a very hot topic that we're talking about today. And I love to just sort of dive in and also, I have some information prepared, but then also take questions from the audience because you're right; those are good questions. um, and my honest opinion is that we have enough room for the immigrants, and we have plenty of opportunities, and the more we can provide those work authorization opportunities for those, then we can make the United States even better and improve the economy. But we're in some unique times, to say it nicely, and so we can sort of just dive into a little bit about that, and go from there. So you all can
Absolutely.
see, yeah. So why don't I go a little bit over some of what the state of the situation is, um, and then we can take some questions. I think one of the biggest things is that there really hasn't been a substantial change in employment or investment-based immigration since January 20th. In employment and immigration for U.S. immigration, it really hasn't been touched as much as other areas like and removal, immigration detention, immigration court, expedited removal, TPS, and parole. And so this has been less impacted. I think what we're seeing is more an impact by just the economy in general, and to tariff or not to tariff. I think it's just a minute by minute situation and how that impacts the economy. So, um, why don't can you see my screen? And then we'll go ahead and get started.
Sure. Just let me go ahead with the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one.
Well, so what's changing and what's not in the U.S. immigration job market, immigration and the U.S. job market. And like you mentioned, I'm board certified immigration attorney with a law firm, Powers Law Group in Houston, Texas, but it's U.S. based immigration. So we have global reach and can help individuals anywhere in the world on U.S. immigration matters. I think we're seeing some significant transformations. There's also changes happening in energy, in the aging of the population, in just sort of the global geopolitics. And we're also seeing since January 20th a reduction in things, the ending of some TPSs, the temporary protected status, and some parole programs. So we're seeing a lot of different movement, and of course, we can't neglect the other conversation of AI and technology, which is having a big impact. I just actually turned in an article for the American Bar Association about AI and how to leverage it in the practice of law, and what that impact will be. So, for a while, we've had unemployment remain really low, and generally, you need a couple of quarters to sort of really see what's going on. Sometimes you can be in the economic turn of, I don't know if we're allowed to say the R word, when you don't know about it, but you have to wait to get some results. But a lot of times they look to other factors such as how is Dollar General or Dollar Tree doing, which I just saw an article saying that they're doing a lot better, which usually means that's when people are more price sensitive, and are concerned, especially about like inflation and tariffs and their job security. So I think we might start seeing a change in the unemployment rate soon. But sectors, healthcare, tech, and energy have been growing. Um, Healthcare, well, people are aging, the baby boomers, there's a lot of need. Honestly, I believe we need a visa for healthcare, more visas for healthcare workers of all different skill levels, here in the United States, but unfortunately, that hasn't been a priority. We're also seeing changes in tech. I mean, yes, there's the concern about AI, but that just means there's going to be some changes in terms of repurposing and retooling skill sets, including new positions that never existed before. If you look at the LinkedIn report of new roles and jobs that never existed before, like AI engineer, for example, are now becoming really popular. And we still know that hybrid and remote persist, even though we have seen sort of a trend to get people back in the office, notably with the government, which has quite been fascinating because they don't have enough space nor internet bandwidth for all of the people that are trying to get back in the office. Anyway, so technological advancements, like we said, I think we've been seeing some layoffs because they're trying to leverage the technology as much as possible. But it doesn't necessarily mean that individuals won't be needed in the future. It just means I think we're in a transition space where companies are trying to figure out how can they do more with the tech that exists, and then what staff do they really need to do the work that persists. And like I said, the baby boomer retirements, many that's a huge portion of the population. They're either retiring or they're passing away, aging aging, and there's also the what do you call the transfer of wealth from those who are passing away, and to their next generation. So we're going to see a lot of movement there. Even thinking about family-owned businesses and the switch over, and the changes that'll ensue. Um, I think that just like education is essential, there's a lot of skill jobs that are being created that didn't exist 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and people are having to get the proper skill level. And of course, the immigration changes that are happening, which is basically the premise of our conversation. A lot of business owners, as a business owner, you want to know what the lay of the land is, what's going on with the economy, what are my options in terms of immigration? Do I need, labor that I can't find here in the United States? And usually it can take a little while for you to see the lay of the land and make a decision on what to do. But there's been a lot of changes really quickly. And even between January 20th with the Trump administration to now, a lot of ebbs and flows. And like I mentioned, there was a lot of discontinuing of parole programs under the Biden administration, a lot of discontinuing about TPS. And I think just in general, there's a fear, let's just call it what it is, of discontinuing other programs,
Mhm.
um, even if they don't know if it really will be discontinued or not. Um, let's see. we still rely on immigrant labor. I honestly would love to discuss further the one of the questions you had said, because there are a lot of positions that predominantly immigrants in the United States fill that US citizens and US workers do not, whether it from low skilled to high skilled. And so we see some industries and types of jobs that have more immigrant labor than others. Um, Honestly, when we're thinking about 500,000 of what is it, parole discontinuation happening, like I believe it was this week. Was it this week? I think the Supreme Court said that the Trump administration can discontinue the parole program under the Cubans, Nicaraguans, Haitians, and Venezuelans. I mean, think about 500,000 workers are going to be wiped off of the our economy unless they switch over to something else. That's a huge impact. Same thing with I think the 300 to 400,000 TPS in Venezuelans as well. So those are big numbers. Like we're easily talking about a million plus people. Um, so there's a lot of different geographic disparities as well, and there's lots of movement of people in the United States due to climate and economic opportunities. So we're going to continue to see some of this happening, but for the most part, we do need the immigrant labor here in the United States, and as much as there's a push for deportations and discontinuing of certain programs, I ultimately think, in my opinion, it's going to hurt the United States in the long run and the short run, as we're going to be losing a lot of labor needs that and it's not just labor, it's consumers. The consumers are going to start if they can't work, then they're not going to be as strong a consumer, or if they're no longer in the United States. And so that's going to have an impact on businesses. And we've also seen an impact on companies where they were predominantly frequented by immigrants. And we're seeing some changes where people are afraid to frequent them. Um, so immigrants make up nearly 18%. That's like almost one-fifth of the US labor force. And we see them a lot in agriculture, construction, elder care, and technology. Both high skilled and low skilled fill crucial gaps. It's so true. It's not just low skilled or just high skilled. We're seeing it in both places, and that's critical. And there's been a focus for many years on the science, technology, engineering, and math, providing more opportunities with certain visas or the STEM OPT extension, and even in the last few years, providing opportunities for national interest waiver as well. And so, generally that whole H-1B, the F-1 to OPT to H-1B pipeline provides like a large option, a lot of options that people can get on the train, get off at different stages wherever they are, and whenever we make problems with the foreign student enrollment issues, which have been the topic of the last few months as well, that really disrupts that pipeline. Um, and we also saw that under the first Trump administration as well, and where there was less student enrollment. And in this time, a lot of the revocations that happened like about a month and a half ago were reinstated, but many people had already left. And then the other thing is now there seems to be issues directly impacting certain universities over others. As we mentioned, there's a lot of need for the home health aides. I recently spent time in a hospital with my father and saw the need. I mean, I knew it, but I saw it with my own eyes, the labor shortages that we have and baby boomer generation, right? And the needs that they have in hospitals, and needing whoever they can to fill these roles. And many of them were essential and low wage workers were in the front lines during the pandemic, and are continue to be needed and essential. Um, I think there is a mismatch in the job market between some of the education and expertise, and how we prepare people for the economy and the market. And I think that's on the United States, but I think a lot of that gets filled as much as possible with immigrants filling in those gaps. Um, I mean, I think sometimes there's this question about, and do immigrants have lower wages? For the most part, the immigrants increase demand for goods and services, and that creates more jobs and more opportunity. Entire cities and communities have been flourishing with the influx of immigrants in the last few years. That, and especially when they were able to have work authorization, and and they also are paying into taxes and in the into the economy. But the other thing is that in many cases with the H-1B, the perm process, others, there is a protection so that they are getting the prevailing wage and they're being protected in that sense. And I think that we're constantly seeing the complementary status of the immigrant and the U.S. workers. I don't really see a lot of times where an immigrant takes a U.S. worker a traditional job, but I think it also helps all, what's the tides, a rising tide, right? Oh, or was it the one about the tides and all the boats? And I think that, it helps everyone come into, or everyone is improving by the competition in terms of more complementary environment with impacting the economy and the productivity and the teamwork across all the skill levels. And so rising tide lifts all boats. That's what I was trying to say. And so we can I feel like it only helps. And then there's also this, the entrepreneurship and the job creation for many of the immigrants who maybe didn't, either they came in here to start businesses like with the E2s, the L1 new office, maybe even an O, or EB5s. Those businesses help us flourish. If you think about the Fortune 100, I believe they say a majority of the CEOs are immigrants. And we're constantly seeing that even with my clients that have no status. In many cases, they go off, get their LLC, make a sole proprietorship, and create businesses and create and impact the local economy. And that creates jobs and stimulates movement in the economies. So I constantly see that. Um, Including the consult I just had right before we started, were some business owner immigrant clients, and very proud of them, and what they do. And then it's important to continue with education, vocation, and English, and being able to, there's a lot of education opportunities. In fact, there's even education opportunities online, so many things now between like free programs or low cost programs. And I think that there's, there's things that we're considering what's going to happen. Will there be some limits to some of the H-1B visas? Will there be discontinuation of programs like DACA? We're hoping not, obviously, but that just feels like it's in the background of a lot of people's minds. Temporary protected status is being discontinued at different places, and in fact, I believe it was the Supreme Court recently gave permission to the Trump administration to discontinue TPS for Venezuela, but so we think that might continue to see discontinuations. We might continue to see discontinuations of TPS in the future, and then the whole push to move to other programs. Um, yeah, so I think that there's a lot of change happening all at the same time, and so we won't we're continuing to monitor reports to see what's going to happen. Unfortunately, some of the labor rights and protections for like wage theft and misclassification, there was a labor program, DALE, Deferred Action for Labor Enforcement, I believe it was called. It only came out during the Biden administration, but I think it hasn't been, we're not sure if it's still fully being enforced, but this was an opportunity for people to report and get work authorization while they were assisting in some type of labor investigation. And so those protections are limited, and remaining to be seen what protections continue to exist. And I mean, I think the urban areas do attract the high skilled immigrants and students just by virtue of the job opportunities and schools. Rural areas really require agriculture, caregiving. There's also the touristy spots that like the ski resorts or the summer beach towns and things like that do also bring labor influx seasonally, and but then also the state laws that have happened, like in Florida or things like in Texas and what have you, do impact where immigrants want to locate. Um, and like we mentioned, the baby boomer generation, in just 5 years, all of them will be over 65, being considering the retirement if they haven't already. And what does that mean? We're going to have an entire generation that will likely not be in the workforce or very limited, and there'll be the transferring of information, of power, of finance, of business, of wealth, and opportunity for growth. And if we don't have immigration, the U.S. would face shrinking labor force participation, which only impacts the GDP, the economies, opportunities everywhere. We know that there's been a lot of different misinformation out there, but that's part of our program today is to get information out and try to share what's going on in the community. We still know that there are different opportunities for legal permanent residency. And we had seen the last few years a lot of push for the national interest waiver, the EB2, continue to do perm like the EB3, and the EB5 still exists, even though there's a lot of talk about this a gold card, which the last I checked, I couldn't find exact details on it, even on the website. But I think that people are watching that one as it's supposed to be a $5 million investment for a legal permit residency, but we still have the E2 and the L as other investment opportunities. And this is what I was mentioning about, like another one about 50% of U.S. unicorn startups were founded by immigrants, and we've just seen a huge impact on in the importance of immigration in the economy. And I think we will continue to see technological shifts, but it might be the reduction in some types of jobs and increase and improve, creation of others. And just overall, immigrants remain vital to the economy and will
Mhm.
continue to do so. And I know my information's available, so I'll just say that I am with Powers Law Group, and we're available for consultations. And we do have our social media has a lot of content out there, including with TikTok lives, Facebook lives, all that other good stuff, and a newsletter that comes out every other week in English and Spanish. But anyway, I think I'm available to take any questions. But I think overall, immigrants are necessary for the U.S. economy, and a lot of the opportunities sort of change based off of how individuals are able to obtain their work authorization, what visas are available at the time. I think we've seen a lot of change in the last few months. We've barely seen any legislation, but I think we're continuing to monitor, seeing what the Supreme Court's doing this June, what's going to continue to happen in with the midterm elections coming up shortly. And I do think that if there is a lot of reduction in opportunity under this administration, the pendulum will probably swing to the other side and create more opportunity under the next potential term. And that's generally how things go. So I'm open for any questions.
Wow, that was so insightful, Ruby. And firstly, thank you so much for putting up that much effort preparing presentation and that too, delivering it in such a detailed way. So, really, thank you so much. And that is so appreciating. And I'm sure that our viewers have liked it a lot and they have developed a lot of questions. But, friends, the great part is you can also get in touch with attorney Ruby Pars. This is the link that you can see. You just have to visit this link and you'll get the contact details of the attorney. Go ahead and ask any question. You can also directly email her or ask a question by putting a message on her number, and that will be great for you. And with that, I'll say, friends, that if you haven't liked, share, and subscribe to our channel, then do it right now. And Ruby, I'll say that, with your presentation, it was fantastic. I mean, all the details were there. I think I will lack questions now because you have answered all the questions. But with that, as you were talking about STEM OPT, so I would like to go with my question regarding the STEM OPT that we have uh, gone with the recent news, right, where the US is trying to slow down the student visa processing and may end the OPT program. It's not a rule right now, but it's an idea, and we don't know whether it's going to happen or not. But this has been proposed, right? So my question to you is that this OPT program is very important, and it basically depends upon how much student can have a good career in USA, and how should student prepare for this, and what impact will these changes have on the US job market, especially for tech companies and the startups if the OPT ends.
Okay, that was a lot of questions. So let me try to dissect that. Look, nothing is really guaranteed ever, right? So I think in times, I feel like I've been having a lot of remembrance to the time of the pandemic recently, this last few months, where there was just a lot of uncertainty. And when that times like that happen, you have to lean on what do you know is pretty standard and will continue, and what is a variable that could potentially change, and what are my options. How do you stay resilient, right? What would be my backup plans? So no one knows the answer to whether the STEM OPT will, or the OPT in general, will continue or not continue. I think it's there's a lot of flux. One of the other things that's important to, if you really get into the nitty gritty, is who has the power to do what. Can things be changed with merely a signature on executive order action, or does it involve Congress? And when you look to, or is it a policy interpretation? And that's really what I think Trump 1.0 really taught me, was we need to look to where is the power of the source of what we take for granted as that we're putting in our equation of decision making. So that, all that being said, I think many people should be having a backup plan, whether that means you're consider another country. Unfortunately, as the U.S.'s immigration attorney, that it troubles me to say that out loud, but okay, it is what it is. Um, or investment opportunities, or a lot of times when I do employment-based consultations, I feel like I more have an A, B, and C option. A is, how do we get to the United States? B is, what's my interim? How much time do I have? With H is giving 5, 7, L is giving 7 years. How much time do I have to move to the next thing? And then C is like, how do I get to green card? Usually, now not everybody wants A, B, and C. And sometimes you can go from A to C, but like you need to be flexible. You need to, upskill. You need to have backup plans. And we're just going to be in some tumultuous times. And regardless of the United States, like also around the world, look to opportunities and consider what you can do. It could end up being a great opportunity to improve your resume, your skill set, your contacts. Sometimes when things happen that you're like think that this isn't a good thing, it ends up can being, you look back and you find out that it was a good thing because of what you did with that opportunity. So I think that might answer part of the question. So, I think it will have a big impact on on the job market. For example, like I was talking about the pipeline, you know, F1, and then you graduate from a level, you can get the OPT, you can get the extension with the STEM. And then, if you can't get picked up in the H-1B lottery, or maybe you're in the H-1 a non-cap, then, but if not, you go to maybe a master's, for example, and you're in the system, and then you got your OPT again. Usually somewhere in there, you'll get an H-1B, an L or something, and then maybe you'll get petitioned, or you marry a U.S. citizen, or you invest in something like that. But really, it's a pipeline, and if we reduce the opportunity for student visas, then we're basically hurting that pipeline, and we're going to feel that impact a few years from now, if not sooner. And it's going to have a big impact, because if you look to a lot of the innovators in our, Fortune 100, or even like small companies, we have a lot of foreign, but U.S. trained individuals, and it's gonna hurt us, and that's what we'll have to live with here in the United States if that happens.
Absolutely.
And
And
people they'll go to other countries, that's what
mhm.
they're do, and that'll be to our detriment here in the United States.
That's right. And that's pretty much difficult for students also to continue with this, tight scrutiny, and that to startups. If we look on that, then startup needs fresh minds. And most of these students, those who are like coming out from STEM OPT, they are going in startups only. They're working over there. So I think this may affect to startup companies as well, and they might also be in trouble. So many things are happening with that. And Ruby also recently, there's another very important news that I would like to present it about Google that has laid off around like 100 workers from its Android and Pixel teams, right?
Mhm.
So this was a very important news and very shocking one. So my question to you is that what does this tell us about US job market in 2025? I mean, will there be any more opportunities for immigrants, or will there be more challenges for them? How is it going to be this year for immigrants?
Well, you have to look to what the positions were that they were discontinuing, and those that we're seeing layoffs in different industries, and especially in the tech. I think there's a lot of talk about using more technology and AI as it's been increasing, and that there I don't think I think what this indicates is that there's sort of a correction happening in the market, and they're also watching like the sensitivity to a lot of different changes that have happened. And so one thing to note is that if there's maybe U.S. workers that are unemployed, they're going to be um, competing potentially against immigrants looking for positions, or if there's more U.S. workers in the economy, then companies that can meet the demands of the jobs needed, then there'll be less. The companies will be less likely to petition foreign labor unless they specifically have a niche skill set that they're not seeing in the U.S. workers. So that's one thing to note. I think just in general that there's just a correction happening where they're trying to see what's going on with AI and technology, what's going on with all the changes with with administration, because one little change can have a big impact in how they're trying to decide where to go forward. And I think that we'll probably see more of these, and I think that's what a lot of people are bracing themselves for, because it's a domino effect, and it all impacts other companies and industries, especially if their competitors are seeing that. And yeah, I mean, I think just a recent article said about 62,000 layoffs across Google, Microsoft, and Amazon just in May alone. And I mean, I think if you want a deeper dive, you look into what were those types of positions, and what were the focuses on doing so. But I don't think that doesn't mean that there won't still be opportunity, but it probably means that there's going to be a lot more people flooding the market, and it might be harder for immigrant labor, especially if like in the perm process, proving that there's no one else to do the same job. I mean, that might be a little bit harder when there's a lot more displaced workers in the market, those types of things.
All right. And Ruby, as you said, that it's going to be a little difficult for immigrants. So I would like to know it from you, as these big tech giants, if they are laying off these many employers, right? So these employers are undoubtedly, they are highly skilled, they are highly educated. So if they are, like looking for new employees, then I would like to know it from you that what qualities are they looking for new hirings. I mean, they should be excellent in qualifications, or what skills, if you can be a little specific about their skills or their education, or anything that what the immigrants can understand it in a better way, how they can prepare themselves for upcoming challenges?
Well, I think that it's sort of hard to answer that with just a blanket statement. I think because there's a lot of different, like we said, 62,000 different positions just amongst those few big companies alone. I think just in general, upskilling, having the soft skills, having the technical skills, continuing to improve, staying on top of AI and its capabilities, and finding ways to be more efficient, standing out. It's like a lot of those types of things that happen when the economy gets more challenging. How do you stand out? How do you have the skills needed? A lot of the time that happens during these type of economic changes is that some of those individuals who are laid off, they go off and start companies.
Yeah.
They get a package, they have a little free time, they finally get the opportunity to say, "Hey, what am I gonna do?" And then new opportunities can arise from that. So there's it might appear a little detrimental at the offset, but usually good eventually comes and the pendulum swings. But I think skill, networking, keeping your LinkedIn up to date, keeping your relationships with others, and letting people know that you're looking for a position, or keeping your ear to the ground for opportunities and continuing to upskill are really important in this day and age.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ruby, for putting up those great pointers. And I'm sure, friends, you are keeping a note of what our attorney is explaining. And, these points are really very important. So make sure that you don't miss out any. And in case if you still have any friends or, someone who should be very much aware about this topic, then please go ahead, share this link, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel. All right, Ruby. So you have touched a very interesting point and talking about AI, right? So my next question will be regarding AI only. That AI is like boom right now. Everywhere it's AI. When we are
Yeah.
waking up till the time we are saying good night, we are using AI. So there's also a very interesting question that people are a little scared because of AI. They think that, especially for immigrants, right? They are scared that in the future, maybe AI can take away their jobs. So, what's the reality? What's actually the truth behind it? Please go ahead.
Well, we're having the same conversations in the legal space, like what's the future? Because when I'm not an immigration attorney, I talk a lot about law practice management at the ABA Tech Show and a lot of different spaces like that. And I think all the industries are going to be impacted in some shape or form. I think there was even a website that said, how much is your job, your career going to be impacted by AI? I mean, that was like about a couple years ago, but I don't know if they're still updating it today. But that's a fun exercise to do. I mean, there's still going to be needing people to make food. Can you make robots for everything? Yeah, but how expensive is that? And how long will it take for that to happen? You're still going to need people to help people in the hospital, to administer medicine, take blood, care give. There's still going to be positions out there that we're going to need. We're still going to need the human relations, where not everyone's going to want to talk to a robot or who they think might be a robot. They don't know if it's a robot or not. So there's a lot of changes happening and efficiencies that can be had, but I think it just means that, like, then how do we reuse the energy that we now have? Like, and you think about the opportunities that happened when the internet came along,
Yeah.
or being able to make telephone phone calls, right? It connected people, being able to fly. You think about the internet as well. Like, now we can send an email in seconds and not have to print off a piece of paper to mail. Oh, that would take forever. I never practiced during that time, thank goodness. But like, so I just sort of look at it as it's a tool. It's a very dynamic tool,
Yeah.
but it's a big disruptor. And really, those who are more innovative and early adopters are going to be able to see the opportunities, and those who are more slow or laggards, they're going to be left behind. um, and this is happening around the world. And so what opportunities can you find? And I think it can also be exciting at the same time.
That's right. That's right. And that's very well put up. And with that, I think, Ruby, let's also shift our focus to our viewers' questions because I don't want
Okay.
to leave them long. So let me go ahead with Jadav's comment. So, hi, Jadav, and thank you so much for being here. If you're new to our channel, then please go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And also don't forget to press the bell icon. Okay, so Jadav is saying that I want to hire an highly skilled foreign national as a software engineer, but the individual's current visa H-1B will expire soon. So, what are my options for sponsoring GC? And also, how might the upcoming changes to US immigration system in 2025 impact the process and timing of this sponsorship? Yes, Ruby.
Yeah, so there is this thing called the H-1B job change or portability. And if the individual had been subject to the cap, probably, and then they won't have to do it again. But you do need to follow certain procedures to be able to switch from one employer to the next and do it. You very likely want to do a premium processing, especially if it's about to expire soon. So yes. We also would need to know how much time. I don't know what country the individual is from for the visa processing time. Those are some. I'm just issue spotting. How long were they already have their H-1B? So how much time were they outside of the country? How much could we recapture? And like what their it seems like a highly skilled, okay, software engineer. So for the perm process, um, there's also, I think, might be seeing some more audits during the perm process, so that can take an extra, 6 months plus or so. So one, it goes back to what I was saying, like A, B, and C. Like A is how do we get them on the H-1B? How much ever time you have left, premium processing, need to prepare that packet and file it soon. Evaluate, make sure that they're eligible, and especially with the company and the position. And then once they're stable, at least just got that approved and started working, everything's hunky dory, great. Then I would say we can talk about the sponsoring, and depending on those other answers, like how much more time you have, how much you can recapture, and nationality and all that, then we can decide. And if you've ever petitioned for anybody before as your company, that can help us impact what the timing would be for sponsoring for the green card. But yeah, those are all plausible, and I think a consultation is the best way to move forward with those specific details.
Absolutely. And Jadav, I will suggest why don't you go ahead and get in touch with attorney Ruby Powers? There's the link, but just by visiting this link, you'll get the contact details of her. Go ahead, reach out to her and ask any question if you are navigating right now in your immigration journey, and she would love to help you out. So, yeah, go ahead, please, and do let us know if you have any other further question, and we would love to take it. Okay, and with that, Ricky is here. So, hi, Ricky, and thank you so much for your comment. Ricky is saying that NIW I-140 petition processing times for the Nebraska Center is 16.5 months as per USCIS website. So, can you give some idea on the typical processing time that you are seeing to receive the I-140 results?
Well, there's, you probably already know, there's the there's the USCIS website that talks about, that has the processing times. I don't know about you, but I've stopped truly trusting it a little bit, and looking to some of my other cases to get a better guide. But I think the biggest thing about the national interest waiver is because of the wait time. There is that whole question: do you do the premium processing or not? Because I think that's your next question.
Yeah.
I don't. There is this belief that filing the I-907 premium processing can sometimes lead to an art request for evidence. I don't know if it's actually ever been proven necessarily, but like sometimes we think that maybe they just come together with some quick like boilerplate response to just buy some more time because they don't want to make a decision. What but really other factors that come into play when you're making a decision whether to do the premium processing or not is how much how much do you need to know that this is going to work or not? And then, because for a lot of my clients, when we have the national interest waiver approved, we're having to work really hard because of that long wait time that now happened, to see how to keep them in like the H or the L or some other visa. And then literally this morning, I was having that exact same conversation with my team. So for the most part, I would probably, if you, I would probably do the premium processing so that you have, first of all, hopefully it was a strong packet in the first place, but I would just so that you can sort of sleep easy at night knowing, is it approved or is it not? And then that way you know some data to make a decision on how can I stay in the US, or will I need to do consular processing because I'll run out of visa time by the time the visa becomes current. And so I know that I'm sort of merging a couple of your questions and trying to answer them all at the same time. But the processing time is in flux. I don't necessarily believe everything that the USCIS website is saying. We're seeing some stuff really fast on the marriage-based adjustment. We're getting some interviews in 2 months. And the other thing about processing times is that it's sort of an average. So if they do something really fast for somebody right now, but they were taking a long time, it's an averaging of that thing. So that's not also doesn't always give you a good indication of what's going to happen to your specific case. So those are just some of the things that I take into consideration, on whether or not to do premium processing or not. And it's also about funds. Do you have the funds to pay the 28 with oh 05, right? Or not? And so those are some of the things I think about when making that decision.
All right. And Ruby, we do have a follow up question. Well, you have talked about premium processing, but just let me take it again. That Ricky is here, and Ricky is saying that, hello, my NIW based I-140 petition has been pending for the last 7 months. So, can I file premium processing for it at this stage? And do you suggest it? Also, can premium processing increase the chances of RFE?
Yeah, so I was answering that a little bit before. You can do a premium processing if even if you've already waited 7 months, you can do that. And I don't think that definitively we know for sure that the premium processing leads to an RFE, but they have had the case for a while. So hopefully it won't necessarily trigger one, and hopefully it was a strong case in the first place. So I would do it like I was mentioning the different factors on whether or not um, you need to you need to know how much visa time you have left. All those types of things are important in making your decision.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you so much, Ruby and Ricky, also, for putting up this question and Ruby explaining it so well. And Ricky, go ahead and also post more questions if you have regarding the topic, and we would love to have those. Okay. Let me go ahead with Seema's comment now. And Seema is talking about like asking that how might the anticipated shifts in the US job market in 2025, such as the growing demand for healthcare and technology professionals, influence the development of new immigration policies and program aimed at attracting and retaining high-skilled foreign workers. Yes, Ruby.
Well, the development is that I think there's a piece of the question maybe missing. Is there a development? How might okay, got it. Okay, the first part, great. Oh, I see. It's got cut in two. Um, Look, what it comes down to is a lot of advocacy. So if business owners are advocating, then a lot of times the represent elected officials will listen to them. But it does take concerted lobbying efforts between different groups. When a group of business owners are saying we need certain healthcare individuals or technology professionals, then a lot of times the elected officials will listen. But I think what we're seeing right now is just there's been so much change, right? Like we started off the whole session with the economy, the change in administration, technology. I think even with the different secretaries and even Elon Musk, like there's been a lot of change. And so, in general, I think everyone's just trying to figure out what is going to remain. Are we slowing down a little bit in terms of like all the rapid changes that happened since January 20th? What's really going on with the economy? Because businesses probably won't go out on a limb advocating for foreign labor, just saying, if there's a lot of people being laid off and there's US workers who could potentially do the job. Now, if the laid off US workers cannot do the job or they're in a different industry and there's still a shortage in that space, then yeah, they probably will do some advocacy, but it's really going to come down to how much they can influence legislatures into doing so. Under this current administration, there hasn't been a huge focus on the demand of these individuals. Like there's it's a mixed bag. It's a big mixed message. I mean, there's a lot of talk about supporting certain nationalities and people who've overstayed, and then there's talk about the gold card. So, there's it's a bit confusing, but I do think that it's needed. I do think that certain tech companies have gone out on a limb and tried to advocate for like their DACA uh, team members, for example, or for more AI and STEM opportunities. But I think we're going to be sort of in a little bit of a wait and see until things calm down a little bit between all of those different influences.
All right, that's interesting. A little different point of view, but that's really interesting, Ruby. Okay, now I think we have covered all our viewers' questions, and Ruby, I do have more questions. So,
Okay.
yeah, I think let's go ahead with these questions. Okay, just let me share my screen. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Ruby. I think I just got disconnected.
Oh, no problem.
But yeah, let me just go ahead with this. Okay, can you see my screen, Ruby?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a question that we got from Vagrava, and Vagrava is asking that, hello, I recently completed my undergrad and will be joining for my New York grad degree starting in fall 2025 at the same university. I have applied for a change of degree in my I-20. I'm planning to travel to India for about a month with my family. Looking at all the
I think
news,
I
safe to
think you need
travel.
to share your window, not the entire screen, I think.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No problem.
I don't know why it's not getting the win. Okay, let me just.
And I
Okay, yeah,
think
now I got it. Yeah,
okay.
it's better, I
Oh,
guess.
now I can read it.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, so this is the question that let me go ahead again. We got from Vagrava, and it is that, hello, I recently completed my undergrad and will be joining my New York grad degree starting in fall 2025 at the same university. I have applied for change of degree in my I-20. I'm planning to travel to India for about a month with my family. Looking at all the news, is it safe to travel? I have a valid passport. I completed my high school in US and converted from H4 to F1 in 2023. My father, who's on H1, is sponsoring my studies. His green card is under progress, but obviously I am no longer eligible for immigration under that. So appreciate a quick response and truly thanks for help. Yeah, Ruby.
Well, look. Everybody's asking about the travel question. I I it's a hard question to answer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's lots of changes going on. Earlier in the year, there was fear of certain travel bans. We sort of haven't heard that in a little while. There's um, we saw some issues with students visas being revoked. Right, that was only like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Um, so on one hand, in a normal world, it looks like you're fine. But in terms of potential changes, is everything going to work out? I think ultimately it comes down to what would happen if you couldn't get back in the United States? Would you be able to live with that? How important is the trip to you? I I hate being the worrywart, but I feel like sometimes that's what I'm having to do. But ultimately, it's the decision of the immigrant and the client to decide whether to travel or not. And so when you're abroad and if you have to necessitate to going to a consulate, there's been a lot of just there's been a lot of reorganization of the State Department. A lot of places are being closed and things moved around. So I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm going to say you have to decide on your own. And usually the summer is a busy time when
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants to go on vacation. I want to go on vacation. But the question is everyone going to get back in time for school to start? So I wish I could give you a better answer, but that's probably the best I can do right now.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Ruby, for taking this question. And I hope, Vagrava, if you haven't if you have more queries, then please go ahead and let us know in the comment section. And maybe not in this session, but in the next session, we can ask for another question. Okay, Ruby, this is another question that we have, and this is from Sindhuja. So the question is that, hi, I was recently laid off due to a company-wide organizational restructuring, and I'm in my 60-day grace period, currently living in USA. I have a few questions regarding proceeding with my next employment. That is, when applying for positions, should I be taking the need work sponsorship? Okay, let's answer this one first. Yeah.
Should I be taking the need? Where is this a different question that you just
Yeah.
need? Oh, applying for visa should I? Oh, oh, well, you don't have work authorization. So you're saying you're applying, well, unless you don't need, but I think you do from the story. It sounds like you do need work authorization. Um, so you need sponsorship or you need a work authorization. Um, the E3 expires. But you're in the grace period and you don't have the position anymore because you're no longer working for the company. So, okay.
Mhm.
I'm a little confused. So you're laid off, but you think the company still wants to continue sponsoring you? Um, so if a person has a visa, let's say it's an H, an E3, an L, whatever, and you're let go from the position, it you really only have from whence it depends, but it's soon after you're let go and you're paid your last paycheck and whatever that like letting go document for the most part between the paycheck and the letting go document, your visa is no longer going to be valid. And so that's when you need to move from. If on the face of it you have a piece of paper that says November or sometime in the future, that doesn't necessarily mean you can just stay in the US until that time. So I think this would be a really good consultation, but it sounds like from what I'm reading, you don't have an underlying visa because your position was discontinued. So your underlying visa is also discontinued by virtue of that. you do need work authorization. And yes, you're right. I mean, a lot of times companies are not keen on sponsoring unless there's a huge demand, and so those are some concerns. But the E3 is actually a pretty good visa to have as an Australian. It's relatively simple to obtain, and so I would just say have a consultation to go through the details because there's so much at risk, potentially at risk.
Mhm, absolutely. All right. So thank you so much, Ruby, for taking up this question. And we do got more questions from Ricky. So I think let's continue with those questions as well. So Ricky
Okay.
is saying that thanks the follow up query. If one is laid off with the NIW I-140 pending, then what all can one do to avoid the whole process of refiling the petition?
Okay. Well, first of all, y- you don't need a job offer to do a national interest waiver. So I don't know if you filed on your own merit completely devoid of anything to do with the company, which is probably what you did. So that's a question I have. But let's say you petitioned just on your own merit, which you probably did, not, with not needing a job offer at all, because that's not a requirement. And you were here on a visa of some sort, but then you're laid off. So that goes back to what's your underlying visa. So you need to switch to something else or get out of the US because you don't want to have any unlawful presence time. And you also, because with the I-140, that's the other tricky part, that's an immigrant visa. So you've got to be careful about if you're on a dual intent, that's okay. If you're on a non-immigrant visa, then you've got to watch that, especially with what your plan is. And so this is a little bit tricky. So I guess like the big key takeaways are make sure you don't have any unlawful presence, that you don't have any non-status time, and that you could continue to move your case to consular processing if necessary. So those are just some things to consider in deciding what to do.
All right. And there's the last question from Ricky. And he's asking that also, can you please share any tips on preparing EB1A petition if one is playing a critical technical role in a startup by raising funds and bringing in projects?
Um, well, there's been a bit of a difference in focus right now, so I think that this is probably a good time because the national interest sort of changes by president and what the interests are. And so I think this would be a good question for a consultation. And but being able to prove that you have other similar experiences that can relate, but this the entrepreneurial startup aspect is really it's critical to note. Sorry, not national interest waiver. You're talking about EB1A. I'm getting confused, Ricky. I've asked a lots of different questions here. um, but I think it depends on how critical that is to the job description of the position, and being able to demonstrate the prior experience and related roles. So that that's pretty specific, I think, and how important that is to your petition. So those are just some things to note.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Ruby, for taking up these questions. And with that, we have even crossed 1 hour. And so
Yes, yes, we have. How did you do that?
we didn't even realize because we got so many questions and your presentation that was fantastic. So it was really a very insightful session. I loved it, and I'm sure by seeing the engagement of our audience, they too have enjoyed it and they have loved the session. So thank you so much for being here, and it was our honor to have a show with you. So seeing you soon. I mean, hoping to see you soon. And with that, have a great day, Ruby, and thank you so much once again for being here.
Thank you very much for having me and wish you all well. Thank you.
Same here. Okay, friends, and with that, that's all for today's episode. I hope you liked watching this session. In case if you have any query or question regarding the topic, then please go ahead and put them on the comment section. We are definitely going to take them, not in this, but maybe in the next upcoming show. And also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Immigration Talk Show as we are live not here on YouTube, but also on available on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and on Instagram as well. So do follow us and also like, share, and subscribe to our channel. With that, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Don't forget to also email me if you have any query on my email address that is sam@staffingly.com. Take care, everyone. See you soon and keep watching Immigration Talk Show. I'm Sam, signing off for now.